At LSI, we don't just follow trends, we help shape the future. Welcome to Behind the Win, the podcast where we break down the biggest moves in tech, innovation, leadership, and government contracting. Here at LSI, we're bringing you exclusive conversations with the minds behind groundbreaking advancements, disruptive strategies, and industry-defining wins. From retail to tech, defense to government solutions. This is where you get the insights to stay ahead. Let's go behind the win.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Win, the podcast where we go beyond the headlines to explore how bold leadership and breakthrough ideas are reshaping industries. Today's guest is Spencer Loveless, CEO of Merit 3D and a pioneer in additive manufacturing. Spencer is leading a transformation in how we think about production, moving away from molds, stamps, and offshore factories, and toward on-demand, sustainable manufacturing rooted right here in rural America. His work is proving that innovation doesn't have to come from the coast and that small towns can power big revolutions in how we build. Okay, Spence, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you here. Couple of icebreaker questions for you, but what was the first thing that you ever 3D printed that made you think this is going to change everything?
Wow, the first thing that we ever 3D printed, I think it's two moments in my life, really. One was when the college actually here in Price got a 3D printer. This was back in like 2002, so more than 20 years ago. We printed a couple parts and they came back and they were in our hands and we're like, wow, like this was overnight. The college professor printed this part for us and we have our prototype overnight. And it was just like game changer as far as the prototyping world goes. Where we are now in the mass production 3D printing additive manufacturing world, that game changer came on a day when we sent a customer a part. We've sent customers many parts, and we said it has to be strong, it has to be tough. If we're going to replace injection molding, we have to be cost effective, but it has to be strong. It can't break. And so we would get prototype after prototype after prototype, would take these parts and would throw them on the ground and they would just shatter. They would just break. But one day we got a part and got it in the mail and opened it up. And I'm like, okay, Timmy, throw this on the ground. And he threw it on the ground and it bounced. And that bounce was like, this is awesome. Like this
now
is
the quality's there.
Huge. Yeah, because
Right.
the quality is there that we could, it's a start to something beautiful to where you can have a 3D printed part that is just like an injection molded part. The quality is there, it's tough. And since then it's continually improved over time, which is awesome. Like it's what we need.
That's amazing. So for listeners, you're based in Price, Utah. What's one thing people get wrong about high-tech innovation in rural America?
High-tech innovation. I laugh at this because I think it's kind of simple actually, but next day air ground or next day air UPS next day air is not UPS next day air in rural many times. Like it doesn't, where UPS comes on a daily basis, we fill trucks, but sometimes FedEx, it'll be a next day air delivery and FedEx will just choose not to show up. Like it is so funny.
Unpredictable.
As far as other technologies go, people are like, oh, you don't have the shopping. And it's like, Amazon Prime is just as good here as it is there. It's beautiful.
If your leadership style were a 3D printed object, what would it be and why? And I can guess what I think it is because what I've seen, because I've seen you in some 3D masks for those who are listening that may not know. But if your leadership style was an object, what would it be?
What is your guess?
Well, I would say, I've seen you in masks and hair that's 3D printed, and I love it because to me that shows that it shows that you're willing to step out of your comfort zone in your leadership style, willing to make people laugh, willing to strike up a conversation, but I could be off.
No, I think the hair is definitely a fun one. It brings out personality in people. It brings the double takes to people. I think the other one, and my wife may laugh at this, but it would be a 3D printed pen.
Okay.
We've been working on this project for many years. because pens come from China and they're cheap and they're simple. They're cheap and they're easy.
Yep.
And one of our goals is in the mass production world, cost is king. Like everybody wants good quality and everybody wants it for cheap. And so being a 3D printed pen would just be I'm cheap and easy. Like I want parts that are really good, that work, but I want to displace all these parts coming over from China. Not all of them, but I mean that's a huge goal and it's never gonna happen in all, but that's the goal.
You want to make a dent. I like it.
Really. Yes.
So today you're producing over 60,000 parts a day with 3D printing. What's made that kind of scale possible for you?
Um So just to clarify, we did have one day where we printed over 60,000 parts. On regular day, we're usually in the tens of thousands of parts. It was one of those aha moments. It's like, hey, can we do this? The team's like, I don't know, can we? You're like, yes, we can. Let's do it. And so we did it. And it's came close many times, other times. It's awesome just 3D printing. That kind of scale is possible today because of I would say the technology in 3D printing is constantly evolving. Back in the day, we bought a 3D printer we got it used from the college and it was like $6,000. Today, you can get a printer, just a Bamboo Labs printer for 250 bucks that would print 10 times the speed of that other printer.
Wow.
And so just the quality has improved, the cost has came down, the availability of people to be able to print at home has opened up that market tremendously in the 3D printing world. And people ask, well, what should I get my kid for Christmas? I might get him a printer. It's cheap. It teaches them they can kind of do whatever they want, whenever they want. They can design, they can print other people's designs. Like it's just that's the advancement in 3D printing has made that possible.
So I love that you say that because that's something that someone can do today that knows nothing about it. And I think of one of my IT guys came to me a couple months ago and said, "Hey, can I buy a 3D printer?" And I said, "Why do you need one?" He's like, "Well, some of these parts that we use and some of the things we're doing, we're waiting for a few weeks because of the supply chain issues." And, et cetera, gave me his business case. And it was, let's say, 400 or 500 bucks. I said, "Yeah, sure, get it." So now today he loves coming in my office and telling me everything that he made and how long he didn't have to wait for it. So I think it's awesome that people can start anywhere, right? And like you said,
Yeah.
just get familiarized, and especially with kids, let's show them, as it's evolving, but get more kids that are interested in that and educated on it.
It's so big, it's so huge, and I mean, businesses that have R&D departments, everybody has them, but now they're just becoming so mainstream in homes. My kids are printing all the time, just stuff, and your designer can go search for a file that already exists, or he can create his own, depending on what skills he has. But it's becoming so easy to do it.
That's amazing. We talked about this a little bit. You kind of mentioned it too, just in the quality of it. But how is additive manufacturing making traditional tools like your molds and castings obsolete? And what are the biggest hurdles you've seen to wider that adoption?
I would say we're pretty much on the leading edge, if not bleeding edge, of molds, just because it's what like we see it every day that people are skipping molds, skipping traditional manufacturing for that. But most companies, if not 98, 99% of them out there are still using traditional manufacturing. And so the the hurdle that people have to get that the world has to get over is the cost of materials and not get over the hurdle that we have to fix, I should say,
Yep.
because I had a conversation with a really big company this morning and I said, your price of nylon pellets are $6 a pound. Right now, it's $50 a pound in the 3D world. How do I get that in the 3D world to be $6 a pound? Because at the
Right.
end of the day, the customer doesn't care how it's made. They care that the quality's there and the cost is there. And if as the prices of the 3D printing world come down, then that adoption just goes up. Just like we see with 3D printers. Like the cost of a printer's gone down, Your cheapest really good one out there is $250 all the way up to $1,000. And because that is common ground, it's awesome to see that people can do it at home.
Yep. And coming from the business, that we're in, we have a lot of our supply chain contracts are on legacy aircraft, and we're procuring parts for legacy aircraft that a lot of the manufacturers don't want to make unless we're going to order 1,000 of them, right? And we need 10 of them. So I think what you're saying is I would love to see that, because if I can get 10 of them, and I'm going to pay a little bit more money to get them made, I'll do that rather than the 1,000. But it's so advanced in that area. Do you see that a lot too, where you guys can make less of the parts, right? And maybe the cost is more, but less of those parts than the traditional manufacturers have to make.
Oh, absolutely. It's on-timed inventory. And I mean, the beauty of what you're looking at is they're probably going off drawings and a part, and they have a physical part, and it's really hard to match. Well, as soon as that becomes mainstream in the system that says, hey, this has to be built out of titanium, and here's the 3D file, and here's the system that made sure that the part is up to quality specs, like it's so repeatable across any industry.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, we have we have one container on our premise that has parts that we overstocked, thousands and tens of thousands of parts, because we had to at the time. It was during COVID, and we ordered a ton, and then everything dropped off and supply ended, and it's like, well, crap. Do we throw this away? We have 10 years worth of supply. What do we do?
Right.
And unfortunately, we're still selling them today
Yeah.
because we had to buy them from China, and the lead time was 6 months out, and you can't forecast what you're gonna have to order in the future.
Right. If we had a magic wand.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
companies still relying on this traditional process, what's the tipping point that should push them to seriously consider 3D printing?
The tipping point is really, for many, it's those two things. It's the cost of materials and the quality of materials. I got in my office yesterday 3 new materials that I'm very excited about that just lower the cost almost by half of what we're currently paying, which means we can push that onto customers.
Right.
Um, Also this week we're planning on pulling the trigger on some equipment that's going to be able to produce stronger parts. And so when I look at injection molding, you have the whole gamut of injection molding. You have your nylon parts, which are really tough, and then you have your polypropylene ABS, which are very cheap and inexpensive. I mean, today, the 3D printing mass production world kind of covers that middle ground. They're not the cheapest, they're not the best, the toughest parts, but that encompassing circle just keeps growing to encompass more and more of the parts. And so the tip I would give is, if something didn't work today, like, keep trying. Like, there's other materials, there's other processes that could work. And if it doesn't, there's something pretty close around the corner that is just gonna, really encourage the adoption of additive manufacturing.
One of the most powerful parts, I think, of your story, is how Merit 3D is bringing back jobs and in your rural Utah. What impact have you seen locally since launching the company?
Hmm. As I talk to people about what we're doing, and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" And we say Price, they're like, "Oh, well, what's going on in Price?" Like, I drive through there on my way to Moab, and there's one other big manufacturer in the area, Intermountain Electronics, that's really putting a dent in the manufacturing area here, and it's really cool to see them grow. And like, I love seeing that people are like, "Oh, that's down in little old Price, Utah, huh?" And so I hope that it's helping put it on the map for manufacturing and even tech manufacturing because of, like, what we're doing. I mean, the goal is to revolutionize. And back in the day when they were going to shut down the power plants before the whole AI drain on energy, there was about 700 jobs that were going to be eliminated, affecting about 7,000 people. And our goal was to replace those 700 jobs. And since then, they've said, "Oh, we need all the energy we can." And so it's cool to see that they're bringing that back on for AI purposes, but really transform Carbon County and make it into a, there's issues in every town, but how can we transform it instead
Absolutely.
of
And I
all?
think all get a little bit of that are in Utah, right? That are headquartered here because we have offices in DC and we have some in Sacramento. And it's funny because even in aerospace and defense, they're like Utah. I'm like, Utah's big in aero. Yeah, I mean, we're at the forefront. We've got some of the coolest technologies coming out here. So I love that you guys not only put Utah, but rural Utah on the map. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How do you think additive manufacturing can change the map when it comes to where jobs are created in the US?
The beauty of additive is you can get in it for pretty inexpensive. And if you're looking at an injection mold shop, you have huge tons, you have huge equipment, you have huge, and it's very centralized because of the equipment that's needed. You have a big piece of steel and you need CNCs and the people that know how to make those molds are very far and few between and dwindling. But it just almost decentralizes the manufacturing process to say, if you have a few different places across the country that have the same technology, you know, we could produce, if you need 1 million parts, we could do it. If you want to produce 1,000 parts, you can buy the equipment, you could do it yourself.
Right.
And so the beauty of what it does as far as competing with the powers of international countries is you can have a part and you can have it mass produced within weeks, where you're always going to have an ocean between us and Asia, and this just eliminates all of that back and forth, and it levels the playing ground a lot of where you can start sourcing parts.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to manufacturers who want to start integrating 3D printing into their supply chain but aren't sure where to start or where to begin?
Into supply chain, it's really testing the materials that are out there. Everybody that's in product development today, like every company has at least one to many 3D printers. And so where they can integrate it into the supply chain really gets over that hurdle of what is prototyping versus what is traditional, what we call mass production. As soon as you start printing for a finished part, not just a prototype. And it's really trying and trying and trying again the materials that are out there. There's some nylon materials that we're testing now that are like I can take a part and chuck it on the ground and it won't break. And there's so many materials out there, just keep trying, like figure it out, keep trying.
So I would
But
say, do you
it's
think they need to have a mindset that's more this continuous improvement, right? It can't be trial and error and a few tries and you give up. You've got to really be in it for the long haul, right? That it's a marathon, like you're saying. You've got to be able to keep trying. And as fast as it's evolving, it's not like that's a long time to keep doing that. But I mean, would you say it's a different mindset?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like you have to, it is totally a mindset because when someone tries it once, they're like, oh, it didn't work. I'm going back to my traditional methods. It's like, wait. Let's see if we can do something else.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing. The biggest mindset to get over is people, if you don't lose a customer, then how do you paint that picture to them to say, just try it. Like just get it in your mind. And that was one thing that we did. We launched a project and we said we are not going to injection mold this. This has to be done with 3D printing. And a lot of the engineers on the team were like, we can't do it. Like it can't be done. We're like, well, this is the project parameters, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
And
No plan B, can't give up.
yeah, having that driving effect. And we have Merit 3D and we have Dustless Technologies, and Dustless
Hmm.
Technologies is the customer in that. And I was driving it and saying, like, the project has to be 3D printed. That is what it is. It's like we can't do it. Like we have to. We'll figure it out.
That's amazing. I love that. How does sustainability play into your mission, and what role does additive manufacturing play in reducing waste and overproduction?
Overproduction is an easy one. I mean, you produce it as you want it. In the clothing industry, they say, like, I don't know what the percentages are, but they're many times over 50% of the clothes that they produce end up going somewhere where they're not supposed to be sold. And overproduction is huge. Reducing waste. The perfect design is actually designed supportless, and so you can design it so it comes directly off of the printer and you have zero waste in a part. The um, sustainability side of it, that is continuing to grow because it's not a commoditized item like the injection molding plastics. There's not many times a good way of um, there's not a good way of recycling it yet, just because it's not being used in masses yet. So as that evolves, as that grows, then we continually see that there's many projects that we have some materials that are made from pine trees and other sustainable materials, but they're 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 far and few between and they're growing.
Interesting. What's next for Merit 3D in the future of additive manufacturing? And second part is, are there new technologies or sectors that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, the future of additive, I mean, it's like any industry, it has ups and downs. The last few years, especially, had a big hype with investor dollars coming in. Some companies went under, others are evolving, and others are growing. It's in a spot right now where it's becoming that next evolution of additive manufacturing because technology hasn't really, it's continually evolving, but it hasn't evolved at a leap and a bound like it has in the past. And so the that's continually evolving. The plastics are continually coming down in price, which I absolutely love because that's how we're going to compete with traditional manufacturing.
Sure.
The quality is continuing to improve. We have this week, we're planning on pulling the trigger on some new technologies in the nylon world, which will serve us better for some of the automotive sectors and the aerospace defense sectors. Nylon is a plastic that many people use for just durability and strength, and it's one of those that everybody knows what it is and what to expect. And so being able to launch a program in the really tough materials, really excited about that. Scary because
Yeah.
it's new material, it's new equipment, but it fits well into our process. We have a process for producing a lot of parts, and it's just adding another arrow to the quiver.
What about AI? I mean, we ask everyone this really too. Is that playing any part in your operations today or what you guys are looking at for the future?
Yeah, we had a meeting this morning on it. We're very much, I mean, every business has marketing. There's a lot of AI that's feasible in marketing. Our production schedules, we come into the morning and now we can have AI say, "Hey, I have these printers available. I have these orders in the queue. Tell me what to print." And it just, lays out everything where before this would take a huge programming job to be able to calculate all this stuff. And now it's just you ask it and it goes. There's different AI learnings as far as we track a lot of our print failures and different quality control metrics. And so we're planning on using it into the quality side of things and being able to improve that process of it. And like it's it's awesome for companies we feel like ours and any other company because you can just ideally you can get a lot more done, right?
Right. Time to market.
Yeah.
We're always trying to get, quicker, better, faster, for sure.
Yeah.
If you could snap your fingers and remove one barrier to full-scale adoption of 3D printing, what would it be?
Snap my fingers. First thing, Like I'm a fan of a raising tide raises all ships, and I love when I see other people succeed in this area, and I love seeing other people's successes with just what they're doing. The biggest thing that is going to get, and we're in the mass production 3D printing world, but the biggest barrier is cost of materials. Once the manufacturers figure out the manufacturers of materials that it can be a player in the mass production world and more people adopt it, then that tide just raises. And when people are like, oh, the 3D printing world, then they think of margins of like in the hundreds of percentages. Where in the traditional manufacturing, they're in like the 10 to
And
20%
yep,
margins. And they're like, we got to get these manufacturers out of that mindset that 3D printing doesn't need to be high margins. And I've heard it time and time again that they're like, oh, 3D printing? Yeah, that's this price for you. But in the manufacturing world, then the margins are so much slimmer, which is why other people are adopting it.
right.
That's the biggest barrier is cost right now.
Looking back at your journey, what's one win that you're most proud of, and what did it teach you?
Um, the biggest win I would say is really making that decision and that leap to adopt what we're doing. It was it was the day that we're just like, okay, like are we gonna keep dipping our toes in this or are we gonna hit it head on?
Right, go all in.
And and so, ask me in 5 years if that was a good decision. Obviously, our doors are still open and we're still trucking along and doing really good things, we think. But you do have to get all in. I mean, we're pretty well known in the industry for the mass production additive manufacturing side of it, but we're known with the 3D printing companies. There's so many manufacturers out there that don't know that 3D is an option for mass production. And so it's that day of, okay, let's do it. Like and we've had quite a few wins with world records, I would say, of just, the most parts printed per day of over 60,000, having an order of over 1 million parts of the same part over and over again. And right now we're printing an order for 250,000 parts. We've had the first 3D printed parts on shelves, and we're working on a project right now with Walmart that's going to go in Walmart and another project at the Home Depot. The first one in Shills, Cabela's, Bass Pro. Like those are all big players in the industry, but it's awesome to see
Absolutely.
them. Another one for Hobby Lobby. That's a fun one. You go in Hobby Lobby and everything's from China, right?
Yep.
But then you get some things that can be made in the US and it's like, this is cool. Like it's cool.
That's amazing. I mean, if you can share with some of the listeners different products that you guys are producing, and you don't say for who, but just to give them a broad range of the types of things that you guys do produce.
We do a lot in the gun industry, gun grips, gun handles, plastic parts. Everything we do is plastic and challenging the injection molding industry. So we do a lot in that industry. We do a lot in the outdoor space as far as adapters for cameras. We do a lot of phone cases. We do a lot of nozzles for crop duster planes. Um, this week we're doing brackets for car mounts, just to hold phones and other accessories inside of cars. We do a lot of automotive parts that go kind of in your dash area of cars. We do one of my favorite again is the 3D printed pens.
Yeah, and
Like
I have a few, I think, so from different conferences. I love them.
so being able to challenge that market and challenge everything that's coming over there is just like it's so awesome. It's so fun to see that. So, in the elastomer side, there's a lot of parts that are calls for animals, like animal calls, and other rubber parts, tires for RC cars. Like it's just anything. We're really good. It's kind of the Henry Ford motto. It's we can do any color black that you want.
Yeah.
We're really good at black. We're pretty good at white, but that's that's the most of it.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing those. Where can people find out more about you, about Merit 3D, what you guys are doing, or if they wanted to engage, website, or what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
The company website is merit3d.com. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, post a lot of projects of things that we're working on. I'm a fan of transparency and trying to raise the tide for all companies. And so LinkedIn is the best, and then the website is the best.
Awesome. Spencer, thank you for chatting with us today. Your work is proof that innovation can come from anywhere, and that when we pair technology with purpose, we don't just change how things are made, we change where they're made. So thank you for joining us, and we're excited to watch and see all the great new things that Merit 3D does in the future.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.